I'm Michael Musselman. I'm one of the co-founders of PCAN, Partner Cloud Alliance Network, which is AWS's partner's largest partner leader, partner account managers, partner marketing collective. Also spent a lot of time at an ISV or an independent software vendor partnering with various routes to market, but I specifically spent the last better of 6 years partnering with AWS and building those cloud partnerships. It's a great question. And I think it really depends. It's expensive. Depends on who you are, who your customers are. This goes further back in the journey about your routes to market, the scale of your company. As founders leading everything, how many employees do you have? How many customers do you have? Do your customers and your ideal customer profile attend Reinvent? When you're exiting Series B, probably Series C, you're starting to scale. If you're built on AWS, maybe by now are selling through the AWS Marketplace. Your customers probably are AWS customers. They buy through the AWS Marketplace. I think this is one of the first trade shows you would consider in your marketing demand budget. Is not just whether you're giving money to the booth presence or not. It's your preparation and some of the things you can do before, during, and after. Then when you look back, you're like, oh, this was really worth it to me. I think if it's like anything else you get out of things, which you put into them. So if this is just a checkbox, you might not get a return on your investment. But if you treat it like an entire event and you're planning for this, you might find totally different results.
It is in that preparation. It's about if you do have your PDM, your account manager is saying, okay, this is my vertical. This is who I need to meet. These are the people that we're interacting with. Are there specific customers, prospects that are going? Sometimes there are mutual partnerships, maybe the GSIs that you can look at and you can connect beforehand. Quite a lot of the time, the GSIs do some good events, right? So, and co-sponsor, can you get involved in that? What's your thoughts? Is Reinvent that first step in, or would you go for a summit?
Yeah, I'd recommend to any startup, when you've made the decision that this makes sense for you, sponsoring Reinvent is probably the first show. If North America is your primary target and that's where you're building your business. Even if you're not, if you're purely international or APAC and you have no presence in the US, then I wouldn't recommend Reinvent. Assuming for a lot of the companies we talked to and we've worked at, this is where they got started. They were headquartered somewhere in the US and Canada. And this just seems like the biggest show. It's always in Las Vegas. It's the week after Thanksgiving in the States. So it tends to be ending of the year. What I was saying before, as far as preparation, even before you get to this point, I have seen, and I actually think it's probably a good idea, is to attend the show. So I've seen several CEOs, CROs pay for tickets or just be in Las Vegas during the time, right? Because the other thing is true is if this is your customer base, they're all probably going to be at the show. So whether it's a summit or whether it's Reinvent, sponsorship is one question. And I think that also parallels with, are you actually prepared to be an AWS partner? And am I going to start leaning into the partnership? And am I investing in that? And that's a small thing, is actually sponsoring Reinvent actually does validate you as a partner committed to AWS as well. But even around the show, happy hours and events, let's just say in your pipeline, you have 10 opportunities that you're working on. It's very likely all 10 or 5 of the 10 or the executives, the economic buyers at those companies may be attending Reinvent themselves. So getting them to your events, having them go grab breakfast or lunch or dinner with you or your sales team, all of that is incredibly powerful. And then once you decide to sponsor the show, I still think it's up to your company, your sales team to drive qualified meetings, face-to-face. So it's a lot of the preparation, the show itself, and just handing out swag and collecting leads. Those are just going to be really hard stuff. But if you are telling your customers and prospects, we're going to see there, come meet us at the booth, go to our happy hour, I think all of that can have a huge impact on the brand or making you look like a bigger company than you are. There's no substitution for executive sponsorship and lean in. So as long as the executives to the team, whatever that means for your company, it's usually the CEO or co-founders or chief revenue officer, like you have to be committed to this. The analogy I use, and we teach a lot in our Master PAL courseware, I use this analogy of growing an apple tree from a seed, right? It's like you plant the seed, you give it some water, fertilizer, and then it sprouts and you're so excited. And then it's a journey, right? Before that tree matures and you get apples on it, it's a journey. It's a multi-year journey. But, what happens if you're like 8 months in and you're like, I don't want to take care of it anymore. I don't want to water it. Well, you're never going to get a single apple on that tree. The tree's going to die. Marketing development funds is one of them, but you can use it for your auxiliary events. So let's just pretend I sponsor the smallest booth in Reinvent and I'm a sponsor of the show. And then we go co-sponsor with Splunk or some other security partners of ours. We go co-sponsor one of their events and maybe my participation is 10 grand. The way that MDF works is I can match dollar for dollar. So it costs me $5,000 out of pocket. AWS would commit to that. And the goal is generate leads, go follow up on those leads, do things that generate pipeline for us. But that's another way, a tactic to start thinking about as you start to mature. I'll give other tactics. Once we were scaled up and we started going from the smallest booth to, I think at Lacework, we ended up as a platinum sponsor. It's a pretty big booth. It was definitely expensive. I was also very conscientious about who was staffing the booth, right? So speaking AWS's language, knowing the 200, 300 services, knowing that, one of the failures is, we'll just drop in our BDRs or SDRs to just go manage the booth. And that may or may not be the right resource. So by then I had a fairly scaled team. It was global, but like we used Reinvent. My team worked the booth. Why? We knew what we did. We knew how to speak AWS and our better together story. And that tends to resonate with the kind of prospects running around. But we also had salespeople. We did have some of our SDRs there. We had our product marketing. We had marketing people. So we started to cherry pick. We would create contests and games. So people wanted to go free trip to Vegas. You got to work, but you can have fun too. So the reps that drove the most meetings got to go to the show. Maybe they didn't have to work, but they actually got to go see their customers and prospects, take them out to dinner. But we prepared them. We wrote scripts. We qualified, and between myself and my marketing team, like we made sure it was all the preparation, not just the logistics of the show, but literally what we said, what we demoed, who was there. Did they know this? Did they understand our superpower in context to AWS? Did they understand enough proof points? There's another bit of advice that I give too, is once you decide, I always tell my company, you can't take it away. Because one of the things that I see, someone's there last year, they're not this year, or they had the big Emerald sponsorship and then they don't. So I've coached my and many other friends and companies, like once you commit to this ongoing, stay at the phase you're at. If you're like in the little startup pavilion, stay there. If you sponsor bronze, gold, whatever the colors are, like stay at that level till you're ready to commit to the next level. And once you commit at that level, stay at that level. Don't go down. Don't go up and down. Trust me. Everyone notices. AWS notices. The natural reaction is there must be something wrong with them or their company. They can't afford it. Something's going on. Why were they here before and they're not now? So I also think that's another thing to consider. It's another vector that I think people don't really think through. And I've done that many times. I just said, no, let's just stay gold sponsor. But the second we went up to platinum, I just said, this is in the budget from here on out. Otherwise, let's just stay at the smaller booth. Let's just do what we can there. Is the grocery store. I do use that a lot too. But remember, these are like superstores in states like the Walmarts and Sam's Club. Like these are big stores. They got thousands and thousands of products. So you have to remember too, keep your expectations aligned with reality. Just because you're being sold in this supermarket or this Walmart superstore, you're one of thousands and thousands of products. You're on aisle 99 at the bottom left in the back. No one's seeing you. You can't also expect that I'm going to have the same return where I've done entire booth buyouts. I'm lighting up the side of hotels in Las Vegas. I've got billboards and I'm the big sponsor in the front. So I think it's important to be in the room, but I also think in the beginning, it's about your preparation and execution, but also don't walk in like expecting thousands of leads and all of this ROI. The first time is your baseline. Yeah. Learn from it. What did we do right? What did we do wrong? What did we get? How did those leads convert? What do we do differently next time? But once you're committed, you're going to commit. So every year, figure it out, ask yourself questions, put up the mirror and get better every year. And we did over time and we've seen the results time and time again. remember, you're not getting the list. So you don't know who's going to be
Right.
there, which goes back to preparation. It's really important for your sales team to ask their prospects and customers, hey, are you or anyone going to reInvent? And the trick on both sides, individual contributors and leaders, is a lot of times I'll ask people at AWS, are you going? And they're like, I'm not, but my boss's boss is going. And
Yeah.
I'm like, awesome. That's actually how I've met more senior people at AWS when I've earned the right. In the beginning, an AWS executive that you want to go get a meeting with has meetings with the top customers and the top partners. They're not going to have time for you. Between your PDM and your account manager who sells into your account, you can go find other people in their orgs, in other places. I use the word partnerships synonymous with friendships. These are business friendships. But the truth is, like, relationships still matter. This is still a people business. I actually think reInvent's the right place to start, but it's the same thing with summits. Once I make that decision, or if I sell really heavy into Europe, I think the London summit is milestone number one. And I used to call that like the reInvent of Europe, because a lot of those European companies, resources, they're there, but they don't make the journey to the States. They're not going to Las Vegas for reInvent. And when we were getting started, it was like, all right, we sponsored reInvent. And the first summit we sponsored was the London summit. It's the most expensive in Europe, but it was worth it. And then when we decided stateside, it was the New York summit. So I think each of these summits globally, they depend on your go-to-market and your strategy. But I just know that those become like the two anchors that if I'm going to do it and spend the money, start in Europe in the London summit first. If you're just in the game and you're listening to these conversations, once you've anchored the foundation, the framework, then you're able to see how these things all tie together. But even in the conversation, I think we gave anyone listening some kind of actionable tactics, like things to consider, things to think about, why you would do this. And that's the goal of it.